Travels of the Ellis Arbor is a TTRPG story set in the world of Bastion using the Vagrant Sun campaign setting. Tune in for episode 31, Investure. Almost 6 weeks had passed since that fateful encounter within Araquiel's tower. No sooner had Nout disappeared into ether, the wizard herself had hurriedly gathered her things, pulling her robe tight and tearing through the corridors, away from what she expected to be a fateful demise. Her fear was not misplaced. All the while, the paralyzed form of Darian, screaming and tearing at his own thoughts as the Lady of Blood bid him slay his next mark. Tendrils of that encounter continued to weigh heavy on the remainder of the party. Though the ministrations of Edward and Moore seemed to help, the rampant musings of Carpathian seemed to give reliable context. There was little the captain could do to sway his own thoughts. In that moment, the Lady of Blood was betrayed by one of his own, and she commanded him to murder his first mate. As the ailing weeks continued, the crew made for the Hemvala paths once more. The locals of the parish had little reason to ask on their sudden disappearance. To the outside world, all was as it was. It seemed that the local parishioners of the Mellow Commons cared little for the troubles of wayward folk. What little help they did receive came in the form of coin, of warm bedding, and a navigational compass. Indeed, without Nout to guide them as he once did, Darian would have to take more than his fair share of traveling duties. It is, after all, a captain's duty to lead his crew. And lead them he did. Despite the fiercely uncomfortable nature of Nout's departing, they resolved to find work in other regions of Farreach. According to a local cartographer and local travelers, they'd make it to the southernmost reach of the Pelongi Plains before the end of the month. Should they muster enough courage to navigate the dangerous wilds, surely there'd be new beginnings in store for each of them. And, as Darian calmly put it, surely it would be the origin from where they might start looking for their wayward friend and companion. Despite Carpathian's efforts, Nout was entirely uncontactable. They had the ability to transmit messages through the ether, but transmission was only part of the problem. A creature must be willing to receive communication. Nout, as it appeared, did not want to be found. They would have to find other, more conventional means of tracking him down. And so on they went, traversing dangerous roads and besting whatever challenges lay before them. Night upon night, they came upon all manner of monstrosity. As arduous as the conflict may have seemed, they knew well the burrows of monsters. They made the best places to camp for the evening. None would linger near a basilisk den or a troll cave, lest they be sundered or eaten. But the crew had no such concern. All their years of travel together had prepared them for such a quest. And one night, sitting idly by the entrance of a troll cave and wiping the remnants of gore from his boots, the Darian found a quiet, peaceful contemplation. It turned out that slaying a few monsters could be healing for a storied adventurer's soul. Though the means through which he found his peace was nothing other than alarming, the quiet, moonlit nights were rejuvenating. He clutched at his goblet, half filling it with whatever wine was available, and gazed sullenly at the vagrant moon. How far had their journey taken them? Neither Darian, Carpathian, or Ed were even remotely from this realm. Though they all resembled the folk of both Farreach and beyond, their homelands were far, far away. A veil pulled between that separated them from what they once knew. A fateful evening had drawn the Ellis Arbor through into Bastion and fastidiously closed behind them. As sure as the endless cacophony of waves amidst a stormy night, the veil would always be closed to them. Perhaps now more than ever, it was time to make peace with this new home. Farreach wasn't all that different from what he knew. Humans, elves, and dwarves, monsters, men, and magic, demons, devils, and dark ambitions. Much as it was in the old world. Fascination with the immaterial could rarely be quenched, even through a lifetime of adventure. And so Darian breathed a quiet sigh, listening intently to the quiet snoring of his companions and the brisk, wet season breeze that blew through the cave entrance. But in that quiet contemplation, murmurs of dark refused to leave the captain to his thoughts. Not for long, at the very least. Slowly at first, that haunting, soothing voice began to creep into the corners of his mind. Like the lapping of ocean waves, it hissed as if water lapped upon a shore. Only his mind was the beach, and that ghastly voice was the ocean to which he was drawn. My, you've traveled so far together, Darian. I remember when you set out upon your first venture. We met in the woods that day, and you bargained for new power. Do you recall? I can't stop thinking about it. The first time in an age that a new hero stepped into my midst. Darian allowed the voice to enter his thoughts, retorting with that same practiced candor. Had fate other plans than to wrench me from my future, I'd give everything to change my past. Power is not everything. You've proven that to me time and time again. In fact, you have proven that power, strength, ability, and ambition are nothing. They are like sand, coarse, unforgiving. Over time, it erodes you. Oh, Darian, you bore me. Your pointless musing is doing nothing for your frown. Think of all the things we've achieved together. Your beautiful ship and crew sailing the endless expanse of the ocean. Traveling to new worlds, uncovering dark pacts, slaying malefic creatures. Is that not what you wanted? Darian let his thoughts linger for a moment longer. Was that what he wanted? Perhaps there was a time I wished for nothing else. Had I known the toll I must pay, perhaps I'd have considered other options. I could have made an excellent tailor. I could have run a tavern or become a sommelier. He paused once more. His grip fastened tight around his goblet as a murmur of angst began to fill him. You take more than you give, you know that? My life, my home, my first mate, my... He didn't let his thoughts complete. He wouldn't give the lady her satisfaction, and she chuckled at the captain's loss for words. Take? Oh dear, you think I want anything from you at all? Don't be ridiculous. I've never taken anything from you. Nothing you own to begin with. Your friends, your crew, your love. They're all gifts that I gave you. You forget how much I dote upon you, darling boy. Darian hid his face from the light. In the slim possibility that the crew may have stirred, he'd never forgive himself for betraying his true feelings. Hurt spread across his face, his body. His hands trembled as the goblet rattled in his hands. Why don't I make this easier for you? Why don't I promise to give you back something that you've lost? You only need to do one last thing for me, and we'll call it even. I can tell your heart isn't in it anymore. I'm certain there are more passionate and willing hosts. Let me invest a small modicum of desire into your empty heart. The amulet upon Darian's neck weighed heavier. The blackened, crystalline emblem of the Lady of Blood began to thrum with primordial energy. Darian clutched it with his free hand, and feeling the heat of the amulet against his skin. It burned like the fires of some spell, and the quiet sear made him wince. But he accepted, without hesitation. If you can find your wayward navigator, consider this your final task. Don't let my investure of you diminish. You are made of the stuff of legend, Darian. All that potential, and you'd gladly throw it all away. Seems a shame. At once, he felt as if that voice had left his head. His thoughts emptied. But now, he felt as if the voice were from a figure standing right behind him, glowering over him like a predatory creature, whispering directly into his ear. When you find Nout, I'll gladly take his blood off your hands. Travels of the Ellis Arbor is made possible by the generous support of our subscribers, followers, and most notably, our patrons. Thanks to all our Moon, Wedge, Crown, and Hex tier patrons for supporting us so far on this journey. Please subscribe, give a like or a comment, follow us on Twitter, and stay tuned for the next episode. Make sure to follow us here on YouTube, on Spotify, and on twitch.tv/lonomy. Don't forget, take care of each other.